Now you were out in D.C. And what was your mission out in D.C.?
We were visiting with I, as well as a number of other people here from Minnesota and from other ethanol plants throughout the country. We're visiting with the legislators about ethanol issues and expressing our concerns and things that we thought were important to some of the, to all the legislators from our various states. And then in addition to that, we had a briefing at the White House by President Obama's staff on their position on biofuels, and then also from Lisa Jackson, the EPA administrator, on the status of the situation regarding Growth Energy's request for E15 waiver.
How many people from Minnesota were attending?
I think it was about 10. There were people from the ethanol plants, and there were also some people from the major Minneapolis area that had businesses up there that worked with the ethanol industry too.
How many people total attended the event?
90.
90 from all over the United States?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Were they all focused on ethanol?
Yes.
Okay, so this was specifically for that. Did you guys have any roundtable discussions, or how was the?
We had.
What was the sort of
first?
the?
It was a 3-day event,
Mm-hmm.
and the first day we had was a half a day, and we had a presentation from the EPA, Lisa Jackson, and she spoke to us for quite a while and told us what was going on and the status and the things that they were doing regarding that Growth Energy waiver for E15 waiver. And then the second day we had the briefing from the White House staff at the White House, and then we had visits with the various legislators the rest of the day, and then on Wednesday also.
So what are some of the updates? You mentioned the Growth E15.
Well, on for the people that don't know, Growth Energy did submit a request to the EPA asking that they allow up to 15% be blended in with regular gasoline. Right now we're at 10%. The Environmental Protection Agency allows up to 10%, and Growth Energy and the industry was asking that be changed and allowed up to 15%. Not mandated, simply that it be allowed to go up to 15%. And what our impression is that they will allow that in 2007 year cars. The end of this month, they'll rule on that. We're expecting that at the end of this month, and then by the end of October from 2001.
Okay. Any interesting information that you came back with that you think is maybe of significance to people in Preston, especially since this is a very successful ethanol plant here?
Well, I think that there is support for the biofuels in Washington from the White House. I think most of the legislators are also supportive too. I think there are the critics that we also need to address their arguments, and that is a challenge, addressing all of those arguments and that discussion. And our political leaders and the regulators need to address, the things that they bring up too. A lot of the issues that they bring up. Now, we believe that, as an example, with the E15, there aren't any issues with that. The industry has done a lot of testing on that already, and Other organizations have done testing, and it's a matter that we were very confident that that would be approved and that we wouldn't have any issues with that based on the science and based on the technology, because EPA was doing their own, but we had already done that, so we knew what they would find out. So we're happy with that. So E15 should be available at some point in time. It's not going to happen immediately because there are infrastructure things that need to be worked out, administrative details. But at some point in time that will be available. And I think overall that would mean cheaper fuel for people. The ethanol is very competitive with gasoline in the long term. And that is one of the things that we were discussing with some of the legislators too, regarding the so-called ethanol subsidy, which really isn't, it goes to the petroleum companies, the blenders. It doesn't go directly to the ethanol people, but it was created to help create a market for ethanol and an incentive for the petroleum companies to use the ethanol, so they would get the money for that. Now, the industry's position is that what we'd like to see see that really actually phased out, because we believe that ethanol can compete with gasoline, even though gasoline is extremely subsidized, a very highly subsidized fuel. We believe it can still compete with that. But what we do need is access to the market, because right now that access is controlled by the petroleum industry. And what we'd like to see is that blender's credit, that be used to create or incentivize use blender pumps, where people could actually choose their own percentage of ethanol that they want in their fuel. There are some blender pumps around the country, and they're very successful and very popular with people, and we'd like to see that. So rather than see that money go to the petroleum companies, we would rather see that help with the infrastructure to get ethanol and give people really the option to buy the fuel they want. Right now, in essence, people are mandated that they got to buy 90% gasoline, and that's the only option they really have outside of E85. So we'd like to see that, and then possibly some incentive from that blender's credit that go for flex fuel vehicles also, and possibly a pipeline to get the ethanol out to the East Coast. But eventually that could be phased out.
With this meeting, you said there were roughly 90 in attendance. So did you have a chance to kind of talk with a lot of other ethanol plant managers?
Outside of the scheduled meetings with the legislators and then the other conferences, yes, I did.
Did you get a sense with how the industry overall is doing, in particular, and in comparison to how are other plants doing across the nation in comparison to the one here in Preston?
Okay. That varies, and that will vary quite a bit. The ethanol industry, it's largely dependent on commodities. Corn is the main ingredient. That's a commodity. Ethanol itself is really a commodity, and gasoline is really a commodity too. So it goes up and down. What has happened is that ethanol plants, there has been a lot more ethanol produced, and a lot as ethanol plants have increased throughout the country. So supply and demand were coming much closer together, and at times there was a little bit more supply, or more supply than demand. So that obviously would impact the price.
Minute if I close it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go pick up the background concern. And I'll edit out the portion.
Yeah. So I would say that is the fact that the supply at times has been greater than the demand, has been challenging for the industry. Right now, as we speak now, it's pretty good. Now, the one reason why it's pretty good is because we're exporting more ethanol to Europe. And that has created a little bit more of a shortage of ethanol here in the United States, so the price has gone up.
Is there anything else that you can think of that would be good to share based on the meeting you had out there? What is the sort of the outlook? Okay, right now we're at you're looking at E15. What are the next steps?
Well,
kind of the wish list.
if we were successful in getting more of these blender pumps in, then people could choose their percentage, and they could go E10, they could go E15, E20, E30, or E40, and that could be set on what they want to, and that'd be tremendous. Because they could also reap some additional savings with the higher ethanol content. And from the research that's been done at some of our own universities, University of Minnesota at Mankato, that's not a factor in the older cars at all. So I think they have demonstrated that these cars, the optimal blend was really up to 30%. In the older cars.
Which parts of America seem to have more ethanol plants?
Certainly the Midwest has the most of the ethanol plants. It's where the corn is because they're close to the corn. And I think that is one thing is we need to, what we're really finding out is that we need to educate the public a lot more on the value of ethanol too. It addresses a lot of issues, you know. Certainly, the one that comes to mind right now is just our energy security. How long do we want to keep buying oil from the Mideast, Or in the Midwest, we get a lot of our oil from the Canadian tar sands. That's probably one of the most destructive environmental things in the world, actually. And so it's something that we need to get off of this oil dependency, and we have to start. We should have done that. We should have started this a long time ago in the mid '70s, probably, when we had that gasoline or oil crisis at that time. I think our people and we as a country, we react to crises, but once that's over, then we go back maybe to our old ways, and hopefully we'll stay with this, and we'll actually address something a little long term.